Hello and welcome to another We Are Developers Live. So we're supposed to have a guest right now, but there was a crisis. I'm still looking at my phone at some app called What Thing. If there is something coming up, if he can still join later, it was supposed to be Harry Roberts. If we can't get him today, we're going to get him in some other time because he's a fun guy to have around. And it's good to get some leads because he's from North England. But yeah, okay. So Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah, we're back. I was going to say we're back fully in action because I thought, maybe you'll be back in Berlin, but you're not, right? You're over in Vienna. That looks like the office, unless you've made
I'm in
your
the
office
office right now because tomorrow we're gonna have the WeAreDevelopers Live Day, not Live Day, but the AI and Accessibility Day. We can talk a bit more about that later on because as our guest is not showing up, we have more time to fill. But it's yeah, so I thought I'd stay for the whole week. I mean, every Tuesday, beginning of the month, first Tuesday of the month, I am here for meetings with the rest of the leadership team. So this time I just thought I'd do the whole week and make a story out of it. And yeah, it's really warm here. It's really beautiful. So it's good fun to be in Vienna from time to time. It's a 1-hour flight, so it's not that much of an issue.
Nice.
So yeah, and we're back in action. I mean, I'm not on vacation anymore. You filled in nicely for the two things. There's lots of recordings right now. We're recording a lot of Coffee with Developers with lots of interesting people, and you're producing them afterwards, and I'm sitting here in the office sweating and talking to people. And there's a lot of good stuff coming. I mean, I was super excited yesterday to talk to the people from PenPot, which we're going to have a Coffee with Developers, and we're going to have them on the show in 2 weeks' time, showing their product. And I was wary, I'm like, it's a design and developer thing in the browser. And I hear that so many times, but this is a very different approach, and I really enjoyed it. It's open source from the start, so that was something that I really liked about it. And yeah, I mean, I chatted with the person and we talked for another half hour after the recording ended because we had so much in common. It was really fun to talk to. It's great that there's things coming from in the AI and generative and like tooling space that is not like, oh, one click of a button can do magic for you, but like we really understand how developers and how designers are working and how they're working together to see what's coming out of that.
Yeah, because it does feel like actually there's so much noise around AI and the things that are being released that actually the really good things like this that are AI powered or integrate AI sometimes get lumped in with the things that are just looking like they're being kind of produced quickly and maybe aren't that valuable. So yeah, I know you were really excited about using it, PenPot. So I'm looking forward to hearing the episode, and then I'll go and have a look myself. But yeah, interesting stuff. Sounds good.
Yeah, it's so bizarre because I mean, I'm not being in the day-to-day delivery of things anymore. Like trying these things out is sometimes just feels forced. Like, what do I build with it that actually makes sense to actually try out? But yeah, a lot of people are playing with these things, and there's so many like, I mean, if you have VP in the title of a company like We Are Developers, the amount of emails I get every day with like, oh, you should use this to do that and use this to do that. More importantly, I get all these emails about people asking me if I want to sell via developers, and I'm like, it's not even mine to sell. And no, we're not. And I don't know what cold calling emails are sometimes a hilarious bit. People send you all kind of things that don't make sense.
Yeah, I think I saw a little bit of it when you were away, Chris, because obviously I would get things directed to me, and I was thinking, I don't know, is this something that Chris would answer? So yeah, maybe those kinds of things. I you'll be glad to hear I didn't say that I was going to sell We Are Developers, so we still got it. But yeah, I know cold calling emails though, it's such a numbers game, right? And is that I know that we'll get into AI later, but like it just feels like that's maybe going to take it sort of to a place where it's cold calling on steroids because you can just produce so much so quickly, and the dead internet theory is yeah coming true.
It feels so wonderful formulaic as well because you don't answer to an email and 2 days later is then the follow-up email like, oh, I don't know if you're missing out on that really important thing that only is important to me. And then 3 days later, like, oh yeah, I mean, if there's anything we can do. And then I basically just say like, in the sense of fornicate off, like, no, I'm not interested. Thank you. And then oh, that's I understand that and I appreciate that. Is somebody else in your office available for that? And they're like, I just told you, like, in no mincing words terms that I don't want any conversation with you and I don't care about your product. And no, I'm not gonna do the extra due diligence to find somebody else in the office for you. It's like It feels like
Yeah.
there's automated script on a lot of these tools, and there is, but it's just, no, this is not how to be effective. Just come to events, show me your stuff. That might be an interesting way to actually get the foot in the door rather than like just cold calling emails. And I guess this is where DevRel comes in, because us being at events and talking to people from other companies, going to booths at events and talking to them and looking at the products is much more effective than any of these emails. But the cost of these emails is next to nothing. So I guess they keep firing in them away.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess we spoke. I suppose we do this. I suppose every time we speak to people from sort of HR or from other departments, and the thing they always say is like, "How do I market to developers?" And I find myself saying pretty much straight away, don't seem like you're selling something, or at least maybe don't try and sell something. Actually speak to the person about what the tool does or what it is they're trying to achieve, rather than just trying to sell them. Because I think a lot of developers, I don't know why that is. Would you say that in general, I mean, it's a massive generalization and they're always dangerous, but it seems like developers are wary of sales when we know it's sales or when we feel we're being sold to? Why is that? Because why is it that developers are like that, rather than just the average person?
I guess we've been sold too many times results things that didn't bring the results that were there. Like, I mean, we're always like, oh, we know your pain and we know how to do things. And then if you buy this product, it's going to be all good. And then it's not. And it's especially the bait and switch thing, or like the upsell thing is another thing. Like when the first iteration of looking at something looks very interesting, and then you start to play with it and you realize, oh God, I'm got limited to it. Like, I mean, the whole like aided code environments and stuff, they seem like a veiled attempt just to get you into a subscription rather than just like the product itself. Like, it might be an old school thing, because I mean, I remember buying my editors and then installing them. They came on a CD and then I installed them and then they were mine. And nowadays you basically never have this. Like, the first thing is free and then you install it and then like you realize half the functionality is not available until you actually pay extra for it. And I think that might be the thing. And the other sales bit, of course, is just like trying to piggyback on your stuff as well. Like, oh, you're a developer, so other developers that we can actually talk to as well? And you're like, no, you're already annoyed me. Like, I'm not going to send you my friend's email so you can annoy them as well.
Yeah,
But
it's a total not understanding of how it all works, because you're just going to annoy somebody else, and then they're going to say, Chris, why did you send me this scammer, effectively, or this person who's kind of hounding me? Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at the things we collected for this week to see what we can talk about. I think the first thing, and we're going to come back to that, is tomorrow is the AI and Accessibility Day, and I'm so excited about this. This sounds like a salesperson, but I'm genuinely very happy about this because I lined up all my friends from accessibility world, because I've been doing that for a long, long time. And there's going to be Sarah Joy. She's going to talk about like bringing joy and whimsy also to a world of accessibility, rather than just like accessible things have to be gray and buttons have to be big and that's about it. But like the enjoying the journey into a product can be done in an accessible fashion, and she's going to talk about that. We saw that talk at State of the Browser, it was, right? In London.
Yeah. And it was great as well, because I think it's got a really nice mix of kind of nostalgia. It kind of takes you back to the days of the early web when things seemed a little bit more fun and creative. But yeah, it's also just a really nice kind of angle, because there's so much now that so many landing pages kind of just look the same. They all look like kind of Tailwind demos, and I'm talking about my own projects there, included. So actually, I really like that Sarah's saying, look, we can do something totally different. We can give it a bit of character, but it doesn't mean that it can still be accessible while we do that. So yeah, it's great.
I think the first time that was what was the CSS framework, that the first big ones that everybody just applied, and it was like 3 column text next to each other, 1 big click to action button, and that was every website, and 1 big header image.
Everything.
And it's just, it was just bizarre. Yeah, it's interesting that Google just announced their new like material design thing as well at Google I/O, and that was also like every mobile app that was a PWA looked the same because of that. And then they basically not supported it now, and now they released a new one. I guess this is also when you talked about the sales thing, that we always we're told this one thing is cool, and the next one will be even better, and then it gets completely scrapped and it's not even compatible with other things any longer. So that's also a big thing where developers get frustrated with salesy things.
Yeah, that's a really good one. You know, when you're saying there about the material design, because I remember the Metro look. Do you remember on, I think it was Android phones, you had,
Microsoft.
was it Microsoft? Yeah, you had that kind of Metro look. I think it was on Windows as well. And I remember thinking, oh, this is going to mean masonry grid is like it's supported everywhere, because I don't know why I've always loved masonry grid. Like whenever I see it, it's just a beautiful way to display things. Still struggling 10 years later, you know, we're still struggling. I still find myself doing the header image with the 3 columns whenever I'm doing client work and things like that. So it's funny how little things change.
Well, it was interesting with Masonry JS, then David DeSanto, I think, was the guy who wrote it and then actually licensed his JavaScript, like $50 or something, and that actually worked out for him. And now we got the CSS Masonry Grid proposals, both from Mozilla and from Apple, I think. And yeah, people are discussing about how to do that. I mean, it was very important for Tumblr, and I think also for Imager and those websites, like where you just show lots of images or Flickr. But like, I always wonder, like, what does it do to people with like neurodiversity or people who are actually easily distracted? Like, if there's so many options next to each other, like not everything is a card, and we still display almost everything as a card on the web right now. So it's sometimes, oh, I got this hammer, I'm gonna find a nail now, rather than just like, okay, is this really the layout we should be showing these things in?
Yeah, with infinite scroll as well, you know.
Yeah.
Like
infinite scroll is just driving me nuts at times, especially if it doesn't work. You know, like just give me pagination and reload the whole thing on a flaky connection rather than giving me a loading button that doesn't load anything any longer. And then when it's like, when you do it like 2 or 3 times and it fails the 4th time, and then you have to reload the whole page anyways, and then it starts from scratch again, and you're like, oh, okay. But I guess, are we just old school that we think content on the web should be the same every time we reload the page? Or is it just there's a new generation that just expects things to be different every single time?
Yeah, it's difficult though, isn't it? Because it's almost like a battle between the users and then the the people actually building the projects. Because I think we like things like infinite scroll. We think it looks nice. It feels flashy, but the user might say, "Well, this is just a trick to keep me here, rather than just letting me find the content that I want at my own pace." So I think it's that thing about where we say user experience. It's we like to think we're both kind of working on the same page and that we're both going to agree over what users want and then how we build it to kind of make them happy. But I think there's a little bit of selfishness sometimes. We like infinite scroll, the users don't, but we're going to use it anyway. That kind of thing.
Well, also the reusability thing. Like sometimes I go on Facebook and I find something really cool and I just want to tell people about it, and then I go, I don't know, make a coffee, come back, and as soon as I touch the news feed, the thing is gone, and there's no way to get back to it unless it was a group that I joined and I can see it in the group again or something like that. This like ephemeral content that basically goes away as soon as you touch it. It feels good, but it also feels like, why do I do this? Like, I mean, X just announced like a chat system inside Twitter. It's like, why Twitter was supposed to be like a microblogging chat thing. It has a chat feature, and it's one of those like, oh, it's going away after a minute and nobody will ever find it. And I'm like, nonsense. It's gonna be in the database, and you're gonna index it for your AI model. Like the whole. I think the first one was, what was the one with the ghost? The chat thing that basically was like deleting right after you saw it.
Oh, Snapchat.
Snapchat, exactly, yeah. And I guess that data got mined as well. So I'm not sure about this. I don't trust people when they say they don't keep any record of my stuff. It's
definitely not, no.
So Gary Reed is going to be next, shift left on accessibility. And I love that she's talking about the whole concept of like agile environments. Like how do we work in an agile environment and think about accessibility? Because oftentimes you build something in fast in a agile fashion, and then the review time comes around, and you're like, okay, now we have to make it compliant with all these silly European laws, and we have to think about accessibility, and that's far too late. So hopefully that will be interesting. It's interesting that without trying to, we had like somebody from Just Eat Takeaway.com and somebody from Deliveroo in the same event. Like, so we should be set with food. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Then we have a panel discussion about the AI and accessibility. What does it mean? Like, is it good for accessibility or is it bad for accessibility? Then we got Artur Ortega, and I'm very excited to have him because I worked with him in Yahoo in 2005 to 2010. And he was on my team, and he's like a blind developer, which was just so cool to see somebody write better and faster PHP than I do without seeing it. And he's one of those people that, like, when he complained about things being inaccessible to companies, he didn't just complain in an email. He sent them like a snippet in the browser to change the interface to what he needs. And I think that was really, really cool. Like, there was a script monkey script into extension where you can inject scripts into websites and change the interface, and he would write those and show people how to actually fix their own website before actually so he can use it next time, which was kind of ironic because when we did a tech check yesterday, we ran into a real weird issue because he's using Google Slides, which I do at times as well. And it's actually good. It's actually accessible. He can use it as a blind user and he can present his things. But then it has this pop-up here that discover a new place to create, which is just telling you there is like this new functionality that you can have background images, which of course is super exciting for somebody who can't see. And it's inaccessible. It's completely unavailable to him. And I tried it myself. Like, you go through the page and you actually have keyboard access to almost everything. They've done a really good job with that. But that close button up there is not at all in the tab order. So you cannot reach it with a keyboard, which is bizarre because it actually does, when you look at the source code of it, it actually has all the right things. So the tool itself, the button itself is keyboard accessible, can be reached with a button, has a roll-up button and says close. And if you just basically, why is my machine doing that all the time? So when you look at the source code, you can see it's a div. It should be a button to a degree, but it has a roll-up button and data tooltip close and area label close, but it has a tab index of 0. So it's never, ever in the tab order. So they did everything right except for making it available to you. It's interesting that there's a tab index of 0 and still keyboard focusable here in the picker. It seems to be a wrong thing. And the button here has the same issue, the one that actually triggers that modal. Basically says like it has a tab index of 0 as well, so you cannot ever actually reach that button at all. So I think that's the learning of this one is if you do your own products and try to make them accessible, these modals come in later. This is marketing telling you there's a new feature and we have to tell people in a like really brutal way that these features are there. Make sure that these things are available, because I don't know tomorrow if he can actually present, because if it's the same thing, he never could close this. So his slides were covered up by that thing, telling us about a functionality we didn't want.
How does that happen? How does that, I mean, is it just that the like you're saying, the modal request came in and then it was like, right, push it to production. Let's just worry about it later. Maybe look at the feedback. It just feels very strange for somebody like Google to do that and just miss it, seemingly like it's a complete oversight.
There's several things. I mean, we can ask people in the audience as well, but I think one of the things is that probably the tool itself, the component itself is accessible because it does all the area labels right. It does why the tab index is 0, I don't know. That's the breaking point. If the tab index would not be in there at all, then it would work because it would become part of the tab order. So I guess it is one of those like where the component itself is accessible, but when you put it into the full thing, that for some reason the tab index gets updated or numbered or something, and 0 was the next in the round or something like that. So it was really weird to see that there's this. It should work, but you can never access it.
God,
So
I mean, like that, so good for us to see, though, right? Just before the, tomorrow's day, for us to get a little bit of an insight of this is why it's important, right? This is why tomorrow's important.
And the frustration of somebody who actually makes the effort to have a screen reader installed and actually use it and not be able to see something. And I mean, when you load the page right now, there's like 4 modals of those going on, and it's not fun at all. Okay, this is weird because I now have to go to the other.
Oh, we lost Chris. There we go. Don't you love streaming live? These kinds of things happen. I mean, it's just the nature of it. Chris is going to come back there. I can see him. You guys can't, but there he is. He's popped back, and we're going to get the second screen as well. I said this is the beauty.
I reloaded the wrong
streaming.
screen. Now I reloaded the wrong screen, which is another one of those like, okay, first world problems. Oh, I have too many screens and reload the wrong one. So let's share my screen again.
I think we do quite well, Chris, considering, you know, it's always the case, right? If you do any kind of tech related like podcast or live stream, you're guaranteed to have all the issues you can possibly have. And to be fair, we don't get that many. We've got Vince in the background. He's usually kind of holding it down, keeping things running. And so we do all right. There we go. We're back as if it never happened.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I mean, it's amazing how fast you can do these things. So when you reload one of the shares right now, you get lots and lots of those pop-ups. And yeah, it feels like here's a new feature that doesn't get enough functionality. Maybe we should tell people about it in a very brutal fashion, like some PowerPoint features can't be displayed. We had the same when Arthur tried to use that StreamYard system that we have here with a screen reader. There's like lots of pop-ups like, did you know, power tip, these kind of things. And you're like, just show these things when people come back. Or I guess it boils down to that we never ever can detect if somebody has assistive technology, which we shouldn't, because we could discriminate if we did. So I think that's maybe the issue here as well. So Arthur is from delivery.
Just picking up on that. So I've never really thought of it like that. You know, that you're right, because your initial thought is, okay, there needs to be some way, right, of like we can tell what browser somebody's on, but is that right, that we can't drill down as far as to know if there's any assistive technology being used? And then that second point that you mentioned about you could discriminate, and I hadn't thought of it like that. I think that's actually quite important to pick up on, that that it could be used in a negative way, because you think of these things as just being like, well, it must be inherently positive if we are able to tell, because then we can cater for it. But that's just a really good point. I just wanted to highlight that, really.
Yeah. So he's going to talk about like how accessibility can be used to integrate people into your environments, and with custom MCPs and all kind of good stuff. Carl Grove's going to come. He's a good friend of mine as well. Has been in the accessibility world for a long, long time. And he's been doing this AI is the future of accessibility. So it's going to be interesting to have a positive spin, because he's an angry old man like me as well most of the time. It's great to see that he found his groove in his old age or something like that. I don't know. Leonie is another person that is basically, she's a director at Tetralogical. She's part of the W3C inclusivity group, and she knows so much. And I'm just going to grill her in a fireside chat. So that's all going to be tomorrow. It's 79 euros, and it's starting in the afternoon and goes on late night until I'm boiled in this room here. And it's going to be fun. But let's talk about some other things, not the ones that we do. I love this this tweet or toot or whatever you call it now, where somebody, okay, let's show it on the same one. Why not? On the left, on the right split screen, that's why. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's like, does Mission Impossible, the final reckoning, have a post-credit scene? And if you load this page, it contacts 82 IP addresses, executing 256 separate HTTP transactions to download 18 megabyte of data, writing 64 cookies to your device to tell you no. Is that the state of media websites?
Probably, yeah, it probably is. I mean, I do wonder, you know, because on the one hand, if you think that these websites are supposed to or take the place of like newspapers and like real world publications, everyone says, okay, print media is dead. Oh, I don't know, because I see so many of these, whether it's a lot of them seem to use the same sort of template, maybe not Forbes, but if you look at any sort of news website, it might be, you know, the Sun or the Mirror or something like this, or the Daily Mail. They often run some kind of template, and it almost feels like it's WordPress underneath, and that they all have this similar look, but with it come I mean, they're almost unusable. Aside from things like this that are falling silent for most users, it's just the number of cookie banners and pop-ups and ads, and the amount of real estate that's left for content is next to zero, you know? Yeah, I mean, why? How does that even happen though? Why does it end up making these calls? And how does it get so bloated for what is essentially a page of text, some HTML?
Yeah. This is always my favorite example. I have no idea who. I talked to the designers of it. They said like it really works, But this to me as a web developer just looks like some CSS has not been loaded.
Yeah.
This is just all over the
Oh.
shop, and it doesn't end. It's huge. It keeps reloading random things, and every font size is different. And it's the biggest newspaper in Norway, and it is one of the most successful websites. But it just shows that like there is no rules to web design if it comes to what's successful or not. But this really looks like the font hasn't been loaded, right?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I don't want to say it looks awful because again, if it works, somehow it works. I don't know on what measurement though, when we say it works, you know, is it just that the users say they like it, or is it that, I don't know, it encourages you to keep scrolling and read on? I don't know. On the one hand, you're right. It does say there's no rules, right? And actually going back to Sarah Joy's, you know, add some whimsy, do something a little bit different that has some character. That's definitely got character. But you probably wouldn't do that confidently, right? If I made a site that looked like that, I would say this is kind of awful. And oh wow, okay, that's wow.
Wait, that is actually really good. I mean, this used to be the example of like a completely unhinged web developer. Let me see archive.org, because that website used to be my absolutely favorite to show people.
I think I have seen this before. Yeah, that we have to get the original because it is definitely worth the wait. Is it the one where it's just packed with everything and anything you can imagine? Kind of
absolutely, like mental stuff. And yeah, it's like I buy you lunch and offers like that, and she did. And when you on social media, when you pinged her, it was her, and it was just absolutely fabulous to have these kind of people that completely break every design. Yeah, this is basically what it looked like, and that's. And that was
what?
Just...
oh my God. It would actually be hard work to do some of that.
Yeah, that was absolute magical. It was just like some 14-year-old on GeoCities, and this is what the website looked like for years and years, and it got more and more unhinged the longer it got. Like, and it's just wonderful that. Motorcycling and everything.
This is the best bit, is that every time I think it's done, you know, I think it's done and I go, wow, that's a lot. Like a new multicolored background loads, or that one, a GIF of the person on a motorbike. This is amazing. It was in the UK.
It was just
I didn't know.
car selling company in the UK. Like basically you can order cars, and it was not a piss take. It was really, really the thing. And it was just, yeah, it would be fun to interview her, but also scary. But yeah, that person existed and these websites existed. So I guess we will have to deal with that. But yeah, the whole like, that's a sad thing that Harry didn't come today, because Harry Roberts, who was supposed to be here today, and we will get him back. He's a performance specialist who actually helps people make their websites faster. And yeah, the amount of stuff that basically you do everything to make the website fast, and then a tracker comes in, then a Google ad things come in, then another ad provider comes in, and in the end you got like 20 megabyte of JavaScript that is not part of the page at all. But this is where it falls down. He has a lot of like examples where the web developers of the company did a really good job in making the thing optimized to death in like all the Google things that they need to do. And then marketing came in and put lots of like, where did people click and can I get a heat map of the page kind of thing. And then the 52, 54 cookies came in, and it's really, really weird how we're not in control as developers of what ends up on our end users' computers.
Yeah, and how it gets quite so bloated. I'd love somebody to drill down a little bit more and find out what all of those, you know, what's the 18 megabytes of data, like what actually is it, you know, because there might be some, almost like where you could go, this is worth keeping, this is not. So if we had like an optimized version of the site, what would we actually be able to get rid of, and how much of all of that would be left? So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Terence Eden is always a great one. I should get him as well. He's a lovely chap as well, but he always has these like really weird things that he finds. Like in this case, it's basically attributes in HTML can take whatever. Like basically you can put whatever in there that you want. It's also the problem that you can have them as XSS injection points and these kind of things. But he shows like, okay, you got like CSS classes with like a dash in between. But why not have like lots and lots of classes instead that actually are separated? And then you can put like any kind of separator in there, in this case, like square brackets, or you can put like pipes in there, or you can even put white space in there, an emoji in there. Because in essence, the CSS classes, like in JavaScript, where you do the class collection, class list, it actually just finds the space separated bits, and the other bits are basically just discarded. So you just compare against those. So you can put like all kind of like, you can put comments in there if you want to, or you can put like ASCII art in an attribute. And I guess these are the kind of things where people who don't see HTML as something that is a real programming language, it isn't, but they're just like, if that's allowed, like, why I can't take it serious. On the other hand, I think if those things weren't allowed, the web would not be as big as it is.
Yeah, and I think there's also HTML for me is like, it feels like it's like the basis of a lot of creativity on the web, you know, and you, on the one hand, I'd like it to be stricter, right? Because I see all of this and I go, well, that's great, it's interesting, but it's also a nightmare because it's so unstrict that you can effectively do whatever you like. I don't know though. I mean, again, it's all good fun for like a kind of experiment, but kind of a nightmare if you follow it all the way down, because yeah, you end up then having like no good practices, no even common ways of doing everything if everyone takes this creative approach. It's cool though. I like it. Who was the writer of this again? Sorry, it was, just to give him the kind of shout out, because I love the fact there's people doing this.
He's
Eden.
incredible.
Nice.
He's just, I mean, I think he's retired by now. He wrote something about this, that he basically happy tired. He had enough money and he's like, I don't do anything anymore. But he does like lots and lots of interesting research and like really weird things as well. So it's really good to see that people are playing with these kind of things. But yeah, it's so attributes in HTML can take whatever. I mean, like the same with like CSS selectors can be emoji as well, and you could make complete classes completely unreadable. I mean, this is always the big discussion, like should a CSS class be descriptive or should a CSS class be generated, like when you go to the x.com source code and it's all just generated nonsense. But I always found like looking at this and knowing like it says like card, that's good to know. XY1527 would probably not be as helpful. So the question is HTML there for machines or is HTML there for humans to read?
I'd like to say it's here for humans to read, but I suppose that's it depends when people are watching this, right? If they watch this in 5 years' time, they'll probably say no, it's not. Everything's for machines. But it does. It definitely feels for me that it's at its core, it's made for humans, and that was the beauty I thought of HTML. I remember it being a party trick when I was about sort of 15, 16. And, you know, you would say to people, again, only very specific people would be remotely impressed. But, you know, when you would say, show me the HTML and I can tell you what the site looks like before I've seen it, that kind of thing. And that was the beauty of it. I thought that you could almost visualize it even down to tables and columns and rows, and you could visualize it. So it was super readable by humans. So I want to keep it that way if we can.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, I mean, that's where it falls down as well, as you said, like that the creativity that came from HTML, that people say like, okay, I put like a border around this by putting a border attribute in there. You know, I changed the font by putting a font thing in like GeoCities back then. I mean, there's also the other side that I didn't put in there was the just use. Well, let's talk about that some other time. It's about the whole like where people say like, here's the beauty of HTML, what it can do, and here's like all the things, and then somebody from the React community answered to that. There's also another thing that we won't cover now because I want to cover that now, but we don't this show, where somebody said like, if I were to invent HTML right now, I would do it this way. And it basically invents React as HTML. And it's all about this like, yeah, and there's two-way data binding and there's like refreshing and there's these kind of things. And not understanding that the idea of HTML is to structure things, not to give you functionality. The functionality is just up to the browser to turn a button into something clickable that does something. But the whole concept of making every language on the web into a programming language feels like a very forced thing to do to me, that people don't understand that, like, you know, just describing things might be good.
Yeah,
You know?
it does feel like everything's becoming the same. I know this sounds like a strange. I'm not jumping to any other topic. I'm staying on what you're saying, but it does exactly feel that way. Where, you know, if you've got JSX, it's essentially a combination of JavaScript and a lot of HTML, and then that naturally you get a lot of Tailwind in there, and Tailwind in their latest version have said we're going to be making it so that all of your what would have been JavaScript is now going to be in your CSS files, and I'm looking at it going, there's no separation of concerns at any point now. Everything is just like, yeah, just put it all in one file and just do an import at the top of the file, you know, import your CSS in, and it feels like for me when I'm actually building something where I'm saying, it used to be where I could get into a mental sort of mindset of, like you say, I'm structuring something, so I'm writing HTML. In my case, I'm styling something now, so I'm using Tailwind or CSS. And there's a little bit of crossover between, you know, Tailwind in the HTML, but at least mentally it felt like you were doing something different. Whereas now, if it's all merging in together, you're just writing, quote, code. And then those separations of actually styling something properly or going through the process of just structuring it properly gets lost, and it just all gets replaced by building stuff.
And it makes it harder for the developer tools as well. Like, how do you, I mean, now with color coding and like with like in editor validating, like if everything is munched into one bit, like we cannot do it. Like we can take the rendered content from the browser and allow you to debug that one, but then it doesn't go back to the original change. I mean, when I worked on Edge, we tried to make that happen with like source maps and generated source maps to say like your CSS that you're changing in the browser changes your SAS file. But that was just so much was lost in between this translation, so it felt really bizarre to do that. That separation seems to be a thing that people love to hate. Like, I mean, when we always talked about like Jeffrey Seltman, like back in the days with his first book, it's like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. HTML gives the structure, CSS makes it look at something, and JavaScript gives you interactivity. And people seem to hate that simplicity, so they have to put everything together into one language, rather than just like let the thing do the thing, you know, like, and the CSS is cached. You don't have to worry about it anymore. It's not going to get reloaded, and not the whole rehydration and finding these things is basically like, and then the discussion is always like, well, HTML, CSS is good for like guest books and static pages. And nowadays we build other things. And I actually challenged, do we need to make everything be Facebook? Or maybe a static page with a guest book is enough for a lot of companies out there.
Yeah,
that's the question.
Maybe for some. Yeah, I guess so. Sometimes it's where people are, you know, if they're trying to sell their products, like let's say you are React, you know, and your meta behind it, that you're saying, well, if we can kind of make it so that our framework or our library is like inextricably linked to HTML, you know, if people think of it as it comes with HTML almost in some way, then you're almost like getting your feet under the table. You know, you're making it hard for people to move on from you if that's React in the future. But no, I completely agree. I do not hate the separation of concerns, really, and I think that separation is good, because it's like I said, it's where it keeps the stages of what you're doing different. But I also think it does link in a little bit, you know, not to spin off to another topic, but where we talked before about how everybody is a full stack developer now, and it's like if you know how to use JavaScript and you've created a Next.js project, because it's just going to have some very rudimentary backend effectively in there, Node really, you're going to say, well, I'm full stack because everything is the same now, if you see what I mean. I'm just using a framework. So I'm designing, I'm building, I'm front end, I'm back end, I'm everything all in one, because that's what the library or the framework says that it is. So therefore, so am I. You know, it's that kind of thing.
Cool. This is another one. This crops up every few months, where you can basically say, enter a website and then say what it looks like on different mobile, on different social networks. And it's funny because they seem to be outdated by the time these tools get released. Yeah. But yeah, it was interesting to take a look. Like, I just changed my my blog because I realized that all my social links were basically just listed here on every single page, because I had them in the HTML at the beginning, and now I put them at the end and moved them somewhere else. So basically all my social stuff is absolutely atrociously bad, although it actually is indexed since 2006, so it actually works. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to see what the preview links would look like. And I guess it also comes down to like, how much crap do you want to put in your head of your HTML, and how many meta links do you want to put in there? But it's an interesting thing just to see what just linking it in other social media platforms would look like. So that makes more sense.
That looks
You
nice.
know,
Which is
yeah.
good.
Yeah, so we've done a better job there, but it's like just a nice little tool to see like what would it look like if nobody wrote something about your thing but just posted it on different social media platforms.
Yeah.
This was
Always
another
handy.
This was another interesting one where he basically said that vibe coding platforms are blowing up, but the data shows that more of a creation versus a consumption story. So people build a lot of stuff, but basically build it for themselves. I don't see this as a criticism. I see this as a feature of vibe coding, isn't it? Like, I would be very scared if people build vibe end user products, final products with a vibe coding environment. Isn't the whole idea that vibe coding allows you to just build quick things for you to throw them away?
Yeah, I think that's at least what I've heard from people who, mostly people that have never written any code before, do not work, maybe in tech, or have just sort of stumbled across some of these tools, whether it be Lovable or VO from Versal, or is it V0? Don't know how you say it. But most people are saying that, that they're building these very small scale tools, things that they've maybe just needed in their workflow. It could be something that they say, oh, well, this helped me set this thing up in Excel because I could write a formula and I never knew how to do it. Most people are doing that. And that to me is great. Yeah. That we're keeping things, we're kind of using things in our day-to-day lives that we've made for ourselves. I think that's hopefully where the place for vibe coding is, like, mostly, because do we need to go down the route of, we talk about the issues with security when we're looking at vibe coded projects, but if it's something you just build on your computer and you look at yourself and you don't put it anywhere, I don't see the harm. It's pretty handy for a lot of people. Do you
Yeah,
build things?
I think it's important that this message is out there as well, that people don't realize, like, no, you can't replace all your engineers with a vibe coding environment or force them to use a vibe coding environment to make them more effective. It's a different use case, and it's a great use case, but it's not necessarily replacing production as it is right now. But it's interesting that people do these comparisons. I also like what was it? The other correlation somebody posted yesterday, Turbo Pascal versus Pedro Pascal. Because of Andor, like, and Graph was like going on all like, yeah.
I did see, Chris, on that. The before we move on with Lovable, was it Lovable that recently GitHub put the limit, didn't they, on sort of mono repos, and I'm trying to remember what it was, maybe like 100,000 repos that you could have within this mono repo, and I believe it was Lovable. We'll double check it, but I'm pretty sure it was Lovable that had actually kind of been one of the main reasons that they put that limit on, because the way it was built, anyone that built anything with Lovable would effectively create a repo within their mono repo. So by the time they hit 100,000 users, they were hitting that limit, and GitHub were effectively having a word and saying, okay, well, does this just keep going? Are you going to have 1 million users within this? So I vaguely remember seeing a story about it, but it just popped up into my mind there, where it says about the traffic to Lovable itself is 3 times greater than all traffic to sites published on Lovable. And it just made me think then about how there was a little bit of kind of confusion around how that was being structured on Lovable's side. That when a user creates something, who hosts it?
It also feels weird that it becomes part of their monorepo. Like, I mean, but then again, that's a bit like going to GeoCities and build something in there, and it's part of GeoCities then. So, I mean, that's an ownership thing that might be interesting to discuss about, like, who's, I mean, it's easy to create, but then you're locked into their system. Like, can I fork it into my own? Can I do something else with that? Can I make my own repo and point to that one? Yeah, it would be interesting to see. But yeah, it's an interesting bit, like, that, again, like, an infrastructure company like GitHub then has to defend themselves against this kind of abuse, not like proper abuse, but like wrong use of the system, so to say. It's an interesting one. Yeah. Yeah, the Google burying the web alive, which has been around for quite a while, and this is now on the IntelliGencer, and yeah, it's basically the AI mode of Google, which now gives you an overview of everything rather than just pointing you to links. It's not giving people kickback. It's not giving people links back. So it is worrying. We talked about that for quite a while before. But at the same time, Google keep telling people that the AI overviews are useful for people. They were for me as well at times, but I then also want to know where they're from rather than just like, okay, here's the statement, and I'm like, sure, if that's fine. But there's also the countermeasure, which is still that UDM equals 14, which is the different view of Google. So you can look for like dogs in bee costumes.
I love how that's just at the tip of your tongue.
And then you basically just get the link results. Like if you put that UDM equals 14 at the end of it, it basically gives you the old Google interface. How long that will be, I don't know. They may be shutting that down soon. But it's quite cute that actually just somebody built this like whole website about it that basically like add UDM 14. So this is just a form that adds that question to a search thing, I guess. But it's pretty cute that they have that, and they put no ads on it. So, but yeah, it's like, of course, this still is like, yeah, mostly sold things as the answer. Actually, in this case, it's not. But I guess for most of the other things, it would still be like the dead links at the beginning. But there is ways around, so I found that interesting. But would be interesting to know from people. Do they like the AI overviews? Don't they? What's the difference? Do they use DuckDuckGo? Can we do something with that? I mean, I miss links at times, and I'm not dependent on it. How my blog does fares. I don't make any money with it. I don't have any ads on it anymore. But yeah, it could be super frustrating if your content shows up in these AI previews, but you don't get any link back. You don't see it in your logs how many people seen it. We see it with our magazine as well. We don't know how many people are looking at our stuff anymore because everything is through LLMs and AI overviews.
Yeah,
so that's a tricky one. The million short was also interesting, which basically allows you to do searches that what haven't you found? I don't know. Custard recipe. And then you can basically say like remove the top 100 sites and top 10K sites and these kind of things, like all the ones that everybody else goes in, and oh, you got to log in for that. That's unfortunate. But the idea is like basically that you say like, don't give me the first results that paid the most money to actually be shown, but only show me things that are really deep down in the content. And it would be interesting if there's a market for these kind of search engines at the moment.
Yeah, and whether it's funny as well, because it's like if we're moving from the sort of from the search engine being the primary way that we find things to now using AI search, how do we then factor that into when we've got things like the AI overviews? How do we say, give me an AI overview or answer to this question, perhaps, but don't factor in the results from the first 10,000? It's like, how do we then find like a similar tool that works for AI search? Because that could be pretty handy as well.
Well, last thing, accessibility in HTML emails is getting a really bad report. Like basically, HTML emails seem to be in like this space where it's a what you see is what you get editor that allows you to build the thing, and the content is absolutely atrocious at times. And we need to do that to render it properly. I mean, most HTML emails are still table layouts to support some 20-year-old version of Outlook or something like that. But there are a few things that people do that just frustrate the hell out of me. This is from another newsletter that has good content and I read every day. And this drives me crazy because what is wrong with you if you do something like that? They do great descriptions of all the links. And then every single link is just a link in uppercase with the text of link. So what's the issue with that? Where do you see why am I annoyed about this?
I mean, it's grey for a start as well. I mean, I wouldn't even know that was a link if it didn't say the word link. I mean, but it's also, that's a completely why not just make the description the link? I don't know why you need link after it. And I'm being a real stickler here. There's, absolutely no punctuation. So to me, I read that as Apple Safari exposes users to full screen browser in the middle attacks link. So yeah, there's any number of reasons, but
I think the biggest issue is, of course, that there's now here 20 links that are different links with all the same name. So if you're assistive technology and a screen reader user, you get the list of like 20 links saying link, and you don't know where they're pointing to because you have no idea what they are. It's basically like a shuffle, finding some random content. And it's also so lazy because on a mobile phone, like, why can't I click the whole text? Like, why do I have to find that little link thing to put my finger on? And I have no idea why they done that, but it is prevalent in a lot of like email newsletters that I see, email newsletters, and it just feels like a very, very stupid thing to do, but people keep doing it. And that accessibility report has like lots and lots of information about what's wrong with emails. And it's frustrating because you would normally say I go to I subscribe to a newsletter because it's in my email client, and the email client is something that I know how to access. And when the content inside the email client is not as simple and as readable, then it becomes doubly frustrating. And I mean, now we use like tools to turn any HTML into Markdown so LLMs can index it. And at the same time, we use the wrong HTML to block people out all the time.
So yeah, it's a lot of the time Dreamweaver era HTML. That's how it feels to me. Like whenever I've had to do any kind of creating an email campaign and things like that, and I used to do a lot years ago, nothing's changed. You know, it's like occasionally the way that it previews or the way it displays on sort of things like Gmail, that's improved. I think, you know, they can guarantee maybe more recipients will receive it as well. But it is a bit to sort of be devil's advocate for the developers that are, you know, being mentioned in that report for being so bad. I think I can kind of not understand, because I know accessibility is very important, but I can relate to them a little bit that they've got a lot of things they're battling against, just trying to make it present in the way they want it to. And so then adding that extra layer of accessibility, it probably makes it quite complicated, even though it seems like it might be quite simple.
I think that was the big thing, that basically how it renders in all the different ones. Like I guess there's a lot of marketing and design coming in. Like this has to look the same in every email client out there, and all of them are terrible. I mean, we got the problem with our newsletter as well, which is like when you're in dark mode, it actually displays sometimes the colors wrong. And there is no way to, I mean, a lot of email clients don't support the media query in CSS. We cannot test for that. So there's no way to actually just display it in dark and light mode and define two different styles like you do in an HTML page in an HTML email. So there's tricks with like using a background gradient from white to white to always have a white background. And you actually have to hack around these things. So it really feels, we still haven't fixed that for our newsletter, but it's on my plate that I have to find a way around that. But it feels like you have to battle the system just to display correctly. So it's kind of, it's not forgiving, but it's understandable that these things happen. But these link text things, for example, I don't think is explainable. It just feels like, what were you doing there? It feels really odd to me.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we were at the end of the hour, and we talked to a lot of things. I mean, Harry didn't show up, but we will meet him again. So, I mean, final words. I think one of the interesting thing is like Happy Pride Month. You know, the month where every company actually pays design agencies to turn their logo into a rainbow color, and probably using the money that they saved by getting rid of all their diversity and inclusion people last month. If you really care about that thing, support people, support companies that do things about diversity and inclusion. Don't just wave the rainbow flag because you need to for the month. But it's a very important thing. There's a lot of people out there that have the right to be seen. There's a lot of people out there that have the right to have the same rights that we do. So without going into like the whole like code of conduct thing we're going to talk about at the event again, I think it's great that this month exists. I just hope that the over marketing of it doesn't kill it. There's important matters to deal with, and I think it's a fun month as well to educate yourself about things that you might have biases that you don't know about.
Yeah, very true, very true. It's also, you know, just over 1 month until the World Congress, so I just want to put that in front of everybody. That's a little bit of a shameless plug for us, but it's come around pretty quickly, and it was only yesterday that I thought, how is it a month and 5 days? A month and 5 days. So yeah, if you are watching us live or watching us wherever you're watching us, worldcongress.dev, you can get yourself a ticket. 9th until the 11th of July this year in hopefully sunny Berlin. We had a heat wave last year. Hopefully we get that again. So yeah, so it's not long, and it's just 1 month away.
Okay, but well, let's end with the question: like, why was the Matrix set in Europe?
I don't know. Why was the Matrix set in Europe?
Because before Neo could talk to the Oracle, he had to accept a cookie.
That is definitely an original. That is your own joke, Chris. Because you know, I never know where you get them. I go, does he just hear them and he keeps them there for years and goes, I'm going to roll that out? But that was your own. I know it. Very good. Very good.
With that, let's go back to some cookies. Thanks very much for joining at WeAreDevelopers Live. If you watched this in a recording, shame on you. Come back live next Wednesday, where we're going to have a guest, I think. Yeah, we're going to talk to somebody live and have a live show presentation thing going on. And yeah, I'm off to record more Coffee with Developers, and Dan is off to edit the Coffee with Developers we recorded yesterday. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.